Hi folks, this is Scott with SimpleSpider.com. Today we'll be installing Red Hat Linux 7 on Oracle's VirtualBox. You can see here I've already got my VirtualBox Manager started up, and I'm going to go ahead and choose New. We can see here that it's already defaulted to a type and a version. As I start typing the word Red Hat, it's going to automatically come up and switch to Linux and Red Hat 64-bit. And type my name as Red Hat 7 64, and I'm going to call this my base because I'll use this to copy this to make additional clones of this same server. And I'm going to say next. By default, I can run as low as 512 meg of memory. I'm going to go ahead and change this to 4 gigs of memory just because I have the space. I could change this later if I want, but if I change it during the install, it's going to automatically define my swap space as a larger swap space. So I'm going to go ahead and choose next. I'm going to say create a virtual hard drive now. Say create. It's going to ask me what type. I'm going to choose VirtualBox disk image, the standard image, and say next. I'm going to say dynamically allocate rather than a fixed size. The fixed size will consume all the space immediately. The dynamically allocated will consume the space as I need the space. So I'll say next. I'm going to say add 50 gigs for my base. I can add another one later, and I'm going to say create. It's going to create my image for me, and now I'm going to go in here and make some other non-standard settings. So I'm going to right click on it, say settings, go down to system, and I'm going to choose my processor. So right now it's set to 1. I have plenty of processors in this machine. I have 8 processors in this machine. So I'm going to go ahead and switch this to 2. And then I'm going to move on and say my storage. And I'm going to go ahead and remove my CD-ROM drive. I'm going to remove that with the minus symbol here. And I'm going to go ahead and add the Red Hat ISO that I've already downloaded. So you can see here that I've downloaded the Red Hat DVD 7 64-bit. And I'm going to go ahead and choose that ISO. And the final setting that I'm going to make a change to is by default it's going to choose NAT, which builds its own network. In my case, I want this to be a externally available network. We could choose either one. Both of them would work. We go back and talk about that later. Okay, I'm going to say OK to this. I'm going to go ahead and say start and start my instance up here. And it's going to ask me what do I want to do, and of course I want to do an install of Red Hat. I'm going to hit enter. I'm going to go ahead and escape the disk check there. And right away we can, excuse me, you can see it comes up, asks me which language I want to use here, and I'm going to choose English and hit continue. The install on this is a little nicer than 6. It's a little bit shorter, the screens are. It's going to come up and it's going to say, hey, I can come in here and make additional changes. By default, it's set English as my keyboard. My language is English. It's set me into New York time zone, which is the actual correct time zone for me, but I could go in there and click on that and change that. It said that I'm going to do a minimal install. I could go in here and modify this. In my case, the minimal install to me is always the correct installation. You can always add packages at a later point in time. And from security perspective, size perspective, this is the best way to do it. It's very easy to add packages to Linux. So we're going to go ahead and leave that minimal. It's saying, you know, how do I want to partition this? It says here it's checked off this box. It says automatically configure the partitioning for me. So these are the correct answers for me. If I wanted to modify the configuration for the partitioning, I could come in here and check this off and I can make modifications. I'm going to go ahead and say done here. And now you can see that that symbol has gone away, that I've selected that is what I want to do. We'll also see here that it says that I'm not connected. I'm going to come in here and make it one modification. I'm going to leave this all alone as far as the DHCP and the network settings here, but I am going to turn this on by default rather than off, so when my system starts up, right away I'm going to have an IP address selected for me. And this is a little bit of the difference between that bridge and the network adapter, is that I'm bridged through my router. I'm getting DHCP through my router rather than having a separate network that has translation going on between the two. So I'm also going to come down here and modify the base host name, and I'm going to go ahead and change this to Red Hat 7x64 base.simplespider.com. This is my domain name here. I'm going to modify this each time I make a clone or a copy of this instance. So I'm going to go ahead for now and just give it a base name so that I can start it up and have it running while I have other systems running and not have a conflict in names or IP addresses or anything like that. I'm going to go ahead and click Done. And we're going to go ahead and begin the installation. From here, it's automatically going to start building my installation process. But in the meantime, I can go ahead and create my users and I can set my root password. So I'm going to go ahead and set the root password. I'm going to make this a strong password. If you don't make this a strong password, it's going to let you know right here on the screen. It's not a strong password. It'll still let you do a weaker password, but it's a good idea to have your root password be a strong password. And even if you can, change it every 60 days just because this is your administrator password. This is your key to your system. And we're going to click Done here. And we can see it's working through the installation and that it's going to install 324 packages, and we're already about halfway done. I'm not going to create users right here at this point in time. I script in my user creation so that I automatically randomly do a password and use SSH keys and some things like that. So I'm not going to create additional users here, but that does mean that I'm going to have to log in the first time as my root user. If you're doing the Red Hat install, you most likely already have a Red Hat subscription or Red Hat license. With Red Hat, you do need a license to run their software, get their support, and get their download their packages and their patches. So Red Hat, there's two different versions of Red Hat that have a version that you do not need a license for, and that's CentOS and Oracle Linux. Both are a copy of the same packages that Red Hat uses, so you support slightly different, but you could use a very similar version by using one of those systems if you're not going to purchase a license at this point in time for your enterprise environment. This would work the same way if you're installing this on a physical piece of hardware or if you're using VMware's server software instead of Oracle server software. We're going to go ahead now. At this point in time, it says we're complete, and we can go ahead and reboot. So you can see this install only takes a couple minutes for it to complete the Red Hat 7 installations. I'm going to go ahead and sign in. And I'm going to go ahead and do IP-ADDR. Just going to show me here that I have an IP address already assigned, 192.168.1.128, which is to the bridge networking that I have set up. I'm also going to check my YUM configuration, and we'll see here that the systems comes back and says, hey, we haven't registered the system with our subscription management. and that's another subject that we have another video for registering your subscription with Red Hat Network. So that's all for the installation. Thanks for watching the video.